I'd like to welcome you to this very special session of the ISID Forum. As this is an informal session, before we start the IDB at 10:30, I would like to ask every of you just advance a little bit to the front if you wish, where there is no special sign on the seat, so that we can all a bit closer and follow better the deliberations this morning. So please, I ask you to just join us a little bit in the front of the room so that we can start with the forum. Thank you very much, and I wish you a good morning.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, hello and good morning. I'd like to wish you a very warm welcome this morning to the advanced session of the 7th ISID Forum, Insights from PCP Countries. My name is Sarah Kelly. I'm a TV news anchor and a journalist. And today I'm really thrilled that I get to be here in order to be your moderator. We'd just like to take a moment before we get started. We have a lot of space actually up here in the front. If some of you might be able to move a little bit forward, we would really appreciate it. Please get as close as possible. If you stay in the back, I will take it personally. We'd like to wish a very warm welcome not only to all of you here today, but also to our virtual audience. We are being joined via live stream from Geneva, on the UNIDO website, and on YouTube. We're also using social media today. We're on Twitter, so do feel free to join the conversation on Twitter. If you would like to do so, use the hashtag. It is ISID Forum 7. Again, ISID Forum 7. And there you can also submit your questions for our panelists. We're going to have a lively discussion today, a thought-provoking discussion over the next 1.5 hours. We're going to be talking about insights from PCP countries, and we want all of you to get involved, to pose your questions. Again, on Twitter, the hashtag is ISID Forum. We have an information-packed panel coming up. So I'd like to propose that we get started. Please, without any further ado, we have the great honor and the great pleasure of being welcomed here today by the Director General of UNIDO. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm round of applause for Li Yong as he takes the podium.
Thank you, Sarah. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure to be here today to open this advanced session of the 7th ISID Forum, which, as you know, focuses on the Program for Country Partnership, or we call it PCP in short. We have the honor to have with us representatives from the 6 ongoing PCPs, Cambodia, Ethiopia, Kyrgyzstan, Morocco, Peru, and Senegal. Thank you all for coming. I propose to give them a big applause. Today's advanced session of the 7th ISID Forum is organized especially to provide you, representatives of our member states, with the opportunity to hear directly from the owners of the PCP program in their country with their rich experiences and also the lessons learned and achievements until recently. And I hope this will give you a deeper insight into how the PCP can help making a difference in celebrating and accelerating inclusive and sustainable industrial development in their country. UNIDO operationalizes the PCP first and also foremost as a partnership, one that is owned and led by the respective country. I still remember 2013 ISID, and 2014 we started with a kind of thinking how to operationalize it, because we cannot just talk about big slogan without very concrete programs. So PCP at that time is based on the request of member states, demands of member states to move ahead with industrialization in their country. So the PCP approach strives to scale up the impact of our technical interventions, our technical programs, strong delivery, but one step further is to have another approach. And by leveraging the public finance and private investment in key sectors identified, those that generate jobs as the most needed, also help national economies grow, which will lead to the big poverty reduction. And we seek to facilitate a platform for the pooling of resources and expertise from various partners. We actively build synergies with ongoing interventions to maximize development impact. And together with the delivery of technical assistance, advisory services, and the convening function, we aim for the integrated service package for our member states, cluster programs, and support this industrial development drive. And each PCP represented here today is at a different stage, and as you know, each program is tailored to the specific situation of the country. So later on, you will hear those our representatives from the PCP country give you some detailed information. Government representatives from the very first two PCPs, Ethiopia and Senegal, are on the panel, and they will tell you more about some of the milestones achieved during its implementation of flagship and complex industrial projects. And I really would like to mention, I met with Prime Minister just recently, and a strong support from him, and he himself made very concrete studies on 2 integrated agro-industrial parks out of 4 designed by UNIDO. And very good feedback, and because a very practical vision being developed to move ahead with 17 others. And also, I just would like to share with you, President Macky Sall, November 22nd, and he opened the Nyanju, hope my pronunciation is correct, industrial park, first industrial park in the country. And he appreciates UNIDO's award for African industrialization champion to him. And he also appreciates strong support from UNIDO. And in Peru, we have been working closely with government on the policy to guide the development of sustainable industrial parks, which you will hear more during this session. In Cambodia, Kyrgyzstan, and Morocco, we have been working with our national counterpart and partners to finalize the program phase and are setting up a coordination structure and to start implementation. As part of this progress, for Kyrgyzstan and Morocco, we conducted a country diagnostic to help identify which key areas to focus on. In Morocco, for instance, we will be working with the government to boost innovation technology with a PCP priority area specifically dedicated to Industry 4.0. Some areas we discussed, like auto industry, renewable energy, energy efficiency, etc., also important area. All these experiences in different regions and the context are helping us learn and refine our approach as we move towards wider PCP portfolio. I appreciate our midterm evaluation expert give us lots of very good conclusion and a suggestion, which also help us to develop this program on a better, healthy track. On this occasion, I'm happy to announce that the Secretariat has agreed in principle to initiate the program formulation process for 4 new PCP PCPs over the course of 2019. Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, Rwanda, and Zambia. We are very happy. We will start this process very quick. UNIDO committed to gradually expanding the PCP to more countries. This is also the guidance of member states. And we look forward to working with our member states and the partners towards success of these programs and other future PCPs. At the same time, UNIDO is taking the initiative to upgrade as much as possible all our current approaches built on the features of PCP and the experience gained through the 6 pilots so far. UNIDO will also continue its effort to support member states in mobilizing funds and strengthening partnership for all our programs and services. We remain committed to engaging with you, hearing your suggestions, and working together to support countries in the achievement of inclusive and sustainable industrial development. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and also the colleague friends from private sector also. Before I conclude, please allow me to extend my appreciation again to both our distinguished panelists and the representatives of the member state for their presence and for readiness to engage in what I'm sure will be a very fruitful discussion and exchange today. Building on today's session, UNIDO intends to organize 7th ISID Forum on the sidelines of the 18th General Conference, will be held sometime later in 2019, and where I hope all us will meet again and discuss further PCP achievements, including from the new PCP countries. At that time, we will give you a new chapter of the 4 countries' PCP situation, plus new achievements of existing PCP countries. I appreciate once again your participation and also looking forward to a very hot discussion on the issue. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Director General of UNIDO, Lee Young, for that very warm and very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for our panel session. We are going to kick it off now. We have about an hour for us. We're tapping into insights from PCP countries. And as Lee Young just mentioned, we have representatives from the 6 PCP countries beside me today, including Cambodia, Ethiopia, Kyrgyzstan, Morocco, Peru, and Senegal. For those of you here who might not be familiar with the PCPs, here's a little bit of background to kick us off today. The PCP is UNIDO's newest programmatic service to support member states in accelerating inclusive and sustainable industrial development. Here are the 4 key features on which it is based, including, number 1, government ownership and leadership, a focus on selected priority industrial sectors or areas, a multi-stakeholder partnership, the facilitation of public and private investment. We also heard it mentioned the fact that these 6 PCPs, they're at different stages of development, and today we're going to kick off with the newest of those stages of development. It is Morocco. Please allow me the pleasure now of introducing to you, from Morocco, Youssef El Bari, Secretary General of the Ministry of Industry, Investment, Trade, and Digital Economy. Welcome to you, sir. I'd like to begin, please. And I'd like to begin by asking you, because your country, you already have a well-developed industrial agenda with very clear targets, clear goals. It's called the following, the Acceleration Plan 2014-2020. One of the goals that you have is quite ambitious. You're seeking to create 500,000 industrial jobs and increase the share of industry to GDP from 14% to 23%. And we'd just like to know how you see the PCP helping you to achieve these goals.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. First of all, I must apologize on behalf of the Minister, Mr. Adami, who is unable to attend today's event. Unfortunately, there was a last-minute engagement which prevented him from joining us here today. For Morocco, Morocco launched an industrial strategy in 2014, which is the Industrial Acceleration Plan, based on a set of strategies that took off in 2004, the aim of which was to significantly overhaul the Moroccan industrial strategy to gain greater access to international markets by signing free exchange, free trade agreements, and to reconsider our industry. And thus, we've also tried to develop new industries with comparative international advantages, able to participate in international trade. Of course, this was difficult, because while opening up our markets, there were a number of industrial sectors that became less competitive as a result. And that required a great deal of investment in our infrastructure, and then step by step, little by little, developing those industries where there was a comparative advantages. So this industrial acceleration plan is aimed at meeting UNIDO's targets of expediting, accelerating, strengthening our industries in order to promote economic and industrial growth in Morocco. As you said, this required significant contribution, some 23% of the GDP, in order to also foster employment. This is indeed an ambitious goal, some 5,000 new jobs. We're halfway there now. Results to date are more than satisfactory. Job creation is proceeding as follows. More than 240,000 posts have been created out of the 5,000 that are planned. And we've also been able to increase our exports for various sectors such as automobile, textile, agri-food. Moroccan exports rose between 2014 and 2017 with an average exceeding 10%. Not only was there an increase, but the value has also been enhanced. If we look at the automobile sector, for instance, in terms of capacity, we're talking about some 340,000 vehicles per year, and we're already doubling that figure. It'll be over 700,000. We'll be reaching 1 million by 2020. So there has been a significant increase in the automobile sector, from 30% up to 50%, and we're expecting this to exceed 60% as of next year in terms of output. So we have a clear-cut strategy. We're implementing this through the Program for Country Partnership, which had targets very closely aligned to our own. And over the past period, we have been working together with UNIDO to draw up a diagnosis with a number of broad concepts that will underpin a program that we're going to be working on jointly, addressing a number of sectors as part of this strategy. I haven't covered all aspects or all areas, but just a few examples. Some very specific issues for specific sectors, such as the agri-food industry. Here, the goal is to broaden the range, increase the range of products with a new Center for Excellence for packaging. And we're also working in the area of e-commerce, where we also hope to play a greater role through contributions from this program. And then cross-cutting areas such as industrial sustainability, where we're working on a new generation of sustainable industrial parks. We're also focusing on the circular economy, which is to be further strengthened in Morocco. And then, of course, Industry 4.0. We're working on the model of a modern factory, a platform for Morocco in order to disseminate the notion, the concept of Industry 4.0. And then, more generally speaking, South-South cooperation, of course. Greater integration in the African economy overall, which is very important for Morocco. And we are hoping that this program will help us in order to share our experience with the various African countries and also help us identify business opportunities with the different countries.
Thank you very much, Representative from Morocco, for sharing a little bit more about your program as you kick it off. Next up, we're going to actually hear from one of the first PCPs in implementation since 2015. This is Ethiopia. Please allow me to introduce now Mr. Amasu Nabebe, State Minister of Finance and Economic Cooperation. A warm round of applause, please. And now, sir, we know that in your country, the PCP is supporting Ethiopia's growth and transformation plan too. Also, the vision of becoming a leading manufacturing hub in the region. You've actually been involved in the PCP from the very beginning. So you have this firsthand insight that you bring to the table now over the course of the past few years. What would you say, in your opinion, has been the main contribution of PCP Ethiopia to your country's industrial development over these past 3 years?
Thank you, Moderator, and also Director General. I would be very happy to share what are the contribution of PCP UNIDO support in Ethiopia's industrial development process. I would like to highlight, I think, mention about 5 benefits so far, which this PCP has provided to my country. Number 1 is about strengthening partnership. Is a critical element or a critical success factor for Ethiopia's acceleration of our industrial process. When we say partnership, practically we're talking about internal and external partnership. So with the internal partnership is about coordinating and also building institutions within the government. Previously, it was only left to Ministry of Industry to handle the issue of industrialization in my country. But after the introduction of PCP, what we have managed is really we have mobilized many sectors within which are relevant to those areas, such as Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Livestock, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Science and Technology. And also at a regional level, we brought different bureaus of agriculture industries, but also creation of industrial corporation in the region. So because of that, now the institution within the government is working together. We established interministerial task force led by different ministries, which has helped us to synergize and coordinate our activities. This is really a point of departure of PCP in my country. The second partnership benefit is about the partners who are around us. Previously, again, many of our partners have been supporting the industrial sector, but in a very fragmented manner. All is going on its own in terms of separately. But now we have mobilized, we have actually established a task force that coordinates through Ministry of Finance about the partnership issues. So because of this, we have really synergized the resources that we are mobilizing from partners, but also the knowledge, technical assistance that are also provided by different specializations. And because of this, really, we have a lot of acceleration in that areas. But also this partnership, synergy, coordination also helped us to mobilize more resources. We are getting a huge resource from money and also a huge interest from various new actors in the process. So we have mobilized in hundreds of millions of this US dollar who are really will be implemented is this in the 4 agro-industrial parks we have piloted. So this is one of the benefits. Again, we are really building institutions also. Institutions at federal level, institutions at regional level, who will be really implementing our industrial policies and strategies. The other few areas of this is the focus. I think the PCP has helped us to focus because there is a huge need in industrial development. We have a lot of comparative advantage, but we focused on 3 critical elements. Number 1 is about the agro-industry, agro-processing. The second is the textile, and the third one is leather and the leather product. And because of this, really, we have created many industrial parks specialized in textile, and also leather mojo city. One city, we have created one big city where it's specialized in the leather areas now we are working in. And then we have identified 4 pilot industrial parks. So it helped us focus then our energy, our resource, and also our knowledge, technology. Our partners are really mobilized along this line. And because of this, we are moving forward. So these are really, in a nutshell, the benefits so far that PCP has provided to my country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Next up, we're going to head to Kyrgyzstan, where we are joined today by His Excellency, Mr. Emil Osmonbetov, Chairman of the State Committee of Industry, Energy, and Subsoil Use, excuse me. Please, a big warm round of applause to welcome him here today. Excellency, we know that if I please ask you this question, we know that UNIDO has, for example, been supporting your government in formulating a national strategy for industrial development. It's based on the results of the country diagnostic that you have undergone. How has that support so far through the PCP helped you define the way forward, would you say, for your government?
Thank you very much, distinguished delegates, Director General. Good morning. First and foremost, on behalf of my government, I would like to wish you all a great good morning and successful work for inclusive, sustainable industrial development. On the Kyrgyz Republic, I'd like to note that at one time, if not an industrial country, we've been an agro-industrial one, with many major industrial companies for various agricultural products. Today, this capacity, though, has been lost, and for that reason, UNIDO's support in crafting a strategy for sustainable industrial development was extremely relevant, and that is the reason I would like to thank UNIDO now. On the basis of the diagnostic conducted by experts, we have defined priorities for development of the industrial capacity of our country, including renewable sources of energy, the extractive industry, light industry, including sewing and textiles, as well as the production of construction materials from local fuels. Here, we've defined the priority areas for work through a cluster approach for the development of industry and production. We've defined the conditions, including mineral fuel resources, as well as labor resources, and the energy potential for the country. On the basis of all of this, we identified about 24 regions that would be targeted by the strategy. First and foremost, we were guided by rational use of resources, renewable energy, as well as education or training of our experts who would be working in these fields. So The capacity I talked about earlier requires being bolstered at the government level. Today, the President and Prime Minister, in developing the economy, are focusing on the development of the industrial capacity of our country. Now, about the mineral resources in our country. In the early days, we had gold extractive potential. We also had coal. And today, the matter of the green economy is actually something, though, that's taken the forefront. And that's what I have to add for now. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you so much for that. Next, we're heading to one of the newer PCPs, which has been in implementation since this year, 2018. We are heading now to Peru, and it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Javier Davila Quevedo, Vice Minister of Industry and Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, Ministry of Production. A warm round of applause. Now, sir, we know that your country, that you have developed a Plan 2021, it is called. It's to accelerate inclusive and sustainable development and work toward achieving OECD membership. Your ministry, also together with UNIDO, we know is working closely with the private sector to develop a national strategy for industrial park development. And therefore, we would like to ask you, because that we understand is in its final stages. Can you tell us a bit more about this strategy and why it is so important for Peru? And also, a second point, how has the private sector been involved?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the Director General, to the panel members. Yes, in Peru, we've been working on a strategic, productive diversification plan. That has been the case since 2014. And as part of this, we've established a number of significant elements. One of our deficiencies has been the need to develop the industrial sector. And that's what we've started to focus on. The need to redirect our strategy for industrial development, which means opening up areas for industries to take root, and also fundamentally to take a strategic approach as to how these industries can be set up and what types of industrial parks we want to promote. Accordingly, we've been working with UNIDO and with the private sector chiefly in developing these strategies. And we'll be coming to the end of that process towards the third quarter next year. There are 4 modalities for these industrial parks. Mixed parks, where you have input from different sectors, different sizes, medium-sized and large. Then we have SMSEs, micro and small, medium-sized enterprises that can participate in these industrial parks too, who could find a place in the larger parks in special economic areas, where national and foreign companies can set up, chiefly export companies, and then these IT parks. These 4 options are linked to the national industrial park infrastructure that we are working on in order to harness synergies. As part of this, then, the benefits that we've hope to derive from the PCP are as follows. On the one hand, improving governance overall throughout the country as regards industrial development, and secondly, better coordination between the public and private sectors. That is why we are working with the private sector. It's very important that the private sector be involved from the very outset, so that there is a sense of ownership also of the models and of the various strategies that are being developed. The stability, therefore, is necessary in order to establish this closer relationship between the public and the private sectors. And in turn, that feeds into a shared industrial vision. There are 4 main elements: infrastructure, which is fundamental in order to increase competitivity; innovation, focusing on global value chains; and then the cluster approach. This is what we've been working on in the PCP with UNIDO. And we hope that by 2021, we really will have been able to change the production model in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that insight. Well, next we are heading to Cambodia, and to just right next to me, to His Excellency, Mr. Bhutan Thai. A warm round of applause. Let's welcome him. He is ambassador and permanent representative to the World Trade Organization, and I have the following question for you today, because we know that your country, Cambodia, that you have an industrial development policy 2015 to 2025, that's the official name. One of the main priority areas that we understand is industrial diversification and the development of special economic zones. Your country already has some special economic zones that are already up and running, very well established. Why do you want to expand now through the PCPs in this particular area regarding the special economic zones? And what are your plans for the future? How can the PCP help?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and good morning to all. It is my great honor to present the Kingdom of Cambodia, and I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to UNIDO under the able leadership of Her Excellency Lee Yong for selecting Cambodia as the first country in Asia to implement the PCP, and also thanks to all development partners for providing technical in this aspect. With regard to the question on the special economic zone, we have more than 40 special economic zones. 15 are under operation. And the Cambodian special economic zone are under Council of Development of Cambodia, which has a main purpose to attract more investment and create jobs for the youth. And we have a potential special economic zone in some provinces, those including the Sihanoukville is the province that bordering with sea, and this under the support of the PCP, not only for the agro-food processing, but also for the tourism. In our development policy that just mentioned by the moderator, the DIP for 2015 and 2025 has identified the special economic zone to support the competitiveness industry and high-skilled labor force, with the purpose to create the job for the youth. So why the government focus on this area? With regard to the question on the CPP that helped to achieve it, as we all know that the PCP of Cambodia has focused on 3 areas. The first on the development of tourism, the second on the development of competitive industry, and third on the creation of industry value chain and industrial diversification, in particular through the special economic zone. The PCP also support the government for the appropriate mechanism to facilitate public and private investment, and also for the international financial institution loan. The support of PCP to develop special accommodation is very unique. And appropriate to the complement of our effort. The PCP also allow us to access easily to international practice and experience. So for us, the PCP should be working and linked with the IDPs of Cambodia to help to achieve the development and economic growth through the sustainable development industry. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for sharing that. Well, next we're going to go to a PCP which has been established back in 2015, so it's already been in operation for a number of years. We're heading now to Senegal. Please allow me the great pleasure of introducing to you His Excellency Adama Bai Racine Ndai. He serves as Secretary General of the Ministry of Industry and Small Medium Industry. Please join me in welcoming him. And I'd like to begin by asking you, because I know that one of your most important priorities in your country is the establishment of these 3 to 4 integrated industrial parks. And there's actually been some progress. We heard the Director General actually mention it in his welcome remarks. The fact that one of the complexes, a modern complex, was just inaugurated a few days ago by your country's president. How did the park come about, and what are your expectations for the park in the future in terms of impact for the Greater Dakar area as well as for Senegal's overall economy?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank UNIDO also for this chance to share Senegal's experience with you for the Country Partnership Program launched in 2015. This is a tool for making operational Senegal's industry under its economic and social development policy. As you're aware, the PCP was launched in 2015, and for quite some time, remained in the project phase. Recently, though, actual achievements were made, significant ones. And as the President of the Republic stated, Mr. Macky Sall, there was an inauguration of the first industrial compact under the PCP. This is an achievement, one which is to be chalked up to Senegal's efforts as well as thanks to the program. It impacts 53 states. The first part was financed, totaling about 25 billion. It was financed by the government, and then for the second phase, 70 million were needed. This is a project about developing renewable energy, non-polluting industry. Products will be used for import and export for satisfying domestic needs. The idea is also to move industry out of Dakar and into other regions. Here you have, for an example, the industrial park at Diamniadio. It used to be in Dakar. This is just an example. The idea also is to speed up sustainable industrial development in Senegal. So 2 phases again. Those 2 phases will allow us to produce tangible products because it is expected from the park that there would be 25 non-polluting industrial units created, 25,000 jobs established, an increase of the GDP of 139 million per year. This is particularly significant in a context when you talk about unemployment, a need for jobs for young people and for women in particular, and I think where those jobs can be found is in the industrial park. This is also why I endorse the strategy described yesterday, one of developing industrial parks. the idea is building on our achievements. When I talk about achievements, I'm again referring to the phase 1 of the Demyanyo Park and then the others, but then also and first and foremost speeding up the second phase, which is impacting 43 states and is much more significant. In the pipeline, there are 2 other parks that would come out of the Emerging Senegal plan, and really the trend here is positive. So this is a time for me to hail the work and support of UNIDO in Senegal, which has allowed us to bolster industrial development in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insight from Senegal. We understand that there are many member states who are actually interested in the PCPs. And I mean, these 6 representatives here, they really hold a lot of insight, a lot of keys to the success of their programs. And therefore, at this point, we'd like to make the floor open, the opportunity for all of you to perhaps ask questions that you might have for them so you can tap into a little bit of that insight. We have all of you here in Vienna. We also have the individuals who are joining us in Geneva today, and we'd like to begin with questions here in Vienna. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to please ask you to state your name, the country that you are from, and a very short question. I cannot emphasize this enough, a very short question, maximum 3 sentences, absolute maximum 1 minute. I will be enforcing it. Thank you very much, and I see one question directly here.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. DG of UNIDO, Your Excellencies, my name is Ambassador Vivian Okeke. I'm the Nigerian permanent representative to UNIDO in Austria. I would want to direct my thoughts and questions to His Excellency, the Minister from Ethiopia. Your model of the PCP has been very successful, and because of that, we from the other African countries are looking forward to joining, to be part of the PCP program. I noted that you said that one of the gains from the program was the mobilization of financial resources, especially with the broader involvement of the private sector. My question and concern is the sustainability of the industrialization programs, not only in your country, but across the continent of Africa, especially with regards to policy changes. And so, what efforts are we making to involve the private sector much more in order to ensure the sustainability of these programs, even after the government in power is gone, but because the private sector are involved, then the projects and programs could be sustained. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Very good question. I think one of the critical factors for any industrial development in my country, in Africa, is the key factor is the private sector. Unless otherwise the private sector is fully involved, we will not be sustaining anymore. If you look at one of the key measures that the new government, especially the Prime Minister, is doing is about economic reforms. Economic reforms that will invite both internal and international private sector to serve as an engine of economic growth in our country. And also through this industrial process, agro-industrial parks have become one of the key deliverables of the Prime Minister, which has been at the forefront identified. So in this process, we are actually doing a policy reform, economic policy reform, that will create a more enabling environment for the private sector, both local private sector, but also international private sector. So that will definitely sustain our activities in that process. So all policies are now trying to address the bottlenecks, the hurdles that the private sector had before. So this is very important question and a very important measures that countries should do. Now, also, our key focus is, private sector in Ethiopia is still not grown far because of the history. So the huge focus is on small and medium enterprise to mushroom in that country. So a lot of favorable policies, inclusiveness in financing and others are now happening in my country. So this will be sustained. What the government do is only enabling environment for the private sector, such as energy, provision of energy, infrastructure, road to agro-industrial process, logistics, and others. Then the private sector are the main actors. Already in agro-industry, private sectors are coming in and also start production. So this is really very important, but to sustain, we have to keep on creating an environment for the private sector. That's what we are doing in my country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in many ways, there is still more work to be done. Thank you for your candor on that and for sharing a bit of insights. Perhaps another question here in Vienna. Then, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to go to Geneva now. I understand that we have a number of questions. We have 8 questions that are currently lined up. The first one that I have on my list is from Botswana. So we'd like to give the floor to the representative from there.
Good morning, Kelly. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Director General. There might be a misunderstanding in terms of the questions that would like to be asked from Geneva. I'm looking around the room. I am not aware that any of the delegates here would like to ask a question. Is there any? No, back to you. Apologies for this misunderstanding. There are currently no questions here in Geneva. Thank you.
My apologies for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we mentioned that there's a lot of insight here on the stage today from these 6 PCP countries. One of the key features of the program is really the multi-stakeholder approach. The view there is really based on the idea that combining resources of various stakeholders, if we look at different areas, for example, expertise in finance, investment, technology, that a larger impact will really be achieved. And therefore, we'd like to propose to all of our panelists here today, perhaps beginning with Cambodia and Excellency Tai. You've been engaging with different partners as part of PCP Cambodia. Talk with us a little bit more about that multi-stakeholder approach and how it has been working for you specifically.
Thank you once again, Madam Moderator. For the Cambodian CCP, we have been talking with various stakeholders, those including the public-private investment and also with the development partners. The PCP, which is supported by UNIDO, help us to have the bilateral talk and dialogue with most of the partners. And we always had a strong tie with EU, with World Bank and others development partner. Within the PCP, we had for instance, a good cooperation with Republic of Korea that they have supported around $1 million to the monitoring and the implementation. And for the EU, they have supported Cambodia in the fishery sector, that about 100 million has been supported to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fishery. Similarly, we are in the process to coordinate with the World Bank, the UN, the UNIDO, and UNDP, and also the UNEP, together with the other NGO for funding through the Global Environment Facility. And finally, we see the great cooperation in the expertise from our development partners and dialogue partners, those including Japan, China, and so on. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that. As I mentioned, we understand that there are many member countries who are interested in the PCP program, and therefore I'd like to ask the representative now from Senegal if he can share his insights, especially, you know, what would you say to countries that are interested? What would you advise them? And what do you see as the key to success in the program? As we mentioned, I mean, this is very timely for you as you've just opened up that park within the past couple of days.
Well, when you talk about that industrial park, it really is a source of pride. We have many people in the beginning who didn't believe that this would happen. It was a project actually that was lacking in partners for quite a long time. I remember with the former resident representative of UNIDO, and what we were working on was mobilizing partners. That was hard. But today, with the opening of the industrial park, there's really an attraction there. We have partners coming to see what we're doing, visiting the park. And I'm so happy about that. Of course, that is thanks to the work of the Senegalese government, but also with UNIDO's help. In the industrial park, there are many various businesses from different countries, different nationalities, employing more than 1,000 people. So that's a tangible outcome, something that people had to see with their own eyes. Here's the industrial park. And then we had partners starting to come to us. And then another flagship project. That's the agricultural hubs. The park basically gave evidence that we could do this. And I'll give you an example. Let's say we have somebody who wants to create these type of hubs in the different regions of the country. We get a partner who assists us, in particular through mobilization. For the one in the south, with UNIDO, we have another organization assisting us. We've got another in the center, thanks to the feasibility study. We've got a Belgian partner, the World Bank, and then in the north, we have other partners who stand ready to assist us. I think people really needed to see something tangible to be ready to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that perspective. And with that, I'd like to turn to the representative from Morocco because, you know, we've just heard from Senegal, a success story really there. You're one of the newer PCPs. And so therefore, we'd like to ask you what you think when you hear stories like that. And also, if you could tell us just a little bit more about the initial steps that you're taking right now and perhaps your insights from that. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, we're at a different stage, but we already have had an opportunity to witness the efficiency of the approach during the design phase. Given that we've already taken on board that multi-stakeholder approach, which is specific to the PCP process. In particular, we've ensured that the donors were on board from the outset. And I think that that's something that's really going to provide a great deal of added value. We've also witnessed how the private sector has gotten involved, which is equally essential. That was the case for our industrial strategy as well. Where it's a little more complicated with the private sector, perhaps, is not necessarily at the design phase, but at the implementation stage, which is where you need to really involve the private sector in governance. And that's where we've been able to count on the PCP's support in ensuring that governance. There's always a degree of distrust, if you like, between the public and the private sectors, and it seemed to us that UNIDO, with its credibility and its expertise, that UNIDO could assist in ensuring that governance runs as smoothly as possible. And then, also as regards the PCP, and in light of all of UNIDO's expertise that it brings to the table, that's why we've really emphasized the need to have very specific subjects the experiment, the process is all the more beneficial as long as you're very specific about the items you're addressing.
That's really interesting, and perhaps something that we would like the representative, His Excellency from Kyrgyzstan, to respond to as well. How have you been engaging with different partners as part of your PCP? His Excellency, Mr. Emil Osmanbetov. Thank you so much. If you could just share your insights with us in that regard.
The Kyrgyz Republic is actively working with all of the donors that you've listed, Madam, as well as international organizations. With the UNDP, we're carrying out a broad spectrum of projects, including in the areas of export, moving forward on our priority sectors, the green economy, as well as other types of industrial development. Another good example of cooperation would be with the Russian Fund for Development. Today, just about 1.5 thousand projects are being carried out here. I'm talking about textiles and the production thereof, the Imperial Group, which is responsible for the production of other types of goods, and recently we opened a cement factory for the production of millions of tons of cement, and not just using the most frontline technologies, essentially, which are totally clean. And also we're working in areas of education and training in the area of medicine. Here I might note the opening and use of a new polyclinic on 7 November, for an example. There was a week for the sewing sector with the support of the UNDP and the European Reconstruction and Development Bank. In general, I'd say there's still room for improvement, though, so we'll continue working in the future.
Thank you very much for your candor on that. We very much appreciate it. I'd like to head to Peru now and perhaps get your view on all of this, because as we mentioned, you're really in the early stages as a PCP. So when you hear Representative from example, Kyrgyzstan speaking, we'd like to ask you what you think and also how you have been engaging with different partners as part of PCP Peru. Thank you.
Well, what we have done in Peru in order to ensure better coordination between the public and private sectors is this. There's been a multi-sectoral committee focusing on productive diversification with a specific PCP group or task force, bringing on board representatives of the public sector and the private sector, chiefly ministries and representatives of board of directors of various companies. So we've been able to work on coordinating for the PCP to ensure greater efficiency over time. And in the same vein, we're also setting up a working group on donors. This is one of the Peruvian government's commitments to ensure that we have the necessary financing in place to implement these projects. And to date, we already have received support from Switzerland, Spain, China, and the European Union too. But this is ongoing effort, which is very important. So we're ensuring that there's input from this working group on financing, the donors working group, in order to see how we can fine-tune these strategies for the support of the diversification of our national industrial parks. The PCP, as we see it, is a mechanism that forces us to ensure greater coordination between the public and private levels nationally for the sake of industrial development. And one example of this close coordination would be identifying partners, and this is part of ongoing efforts focusing on the circular economy. In September, a first international forum was held with support from UNIDO and the European Union. And this led to joint efforts headed by the Ministry of the Environment, which led to significant contributions made nationally. The private sector is very interested in developing a circular economy strategy, and here we're working together with the EU, with the UNIDO, and with our government on a first such roadmap, which will lead to mechanisms to develop the circular economy as a cleaner production model in all areas, which will allow us to make further progress and to get on board in this new revolution in our country. So once again, we really are moving forward in trying to identify these synergies, identifying the coordination between the public and private sectors in order to meet the targets set under the PCP.
Thank you so much for that insight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just open up one final time this morning the floor to any questions. So if you do have a question, please feel free to raise your hand now. This will be the last time that I will open up the floor. I see a question right there.
Good morning. My name is Juan Minaya from Peru. And I would like to ask a question to Mr. Javier Dávila, the Vice Minister of Industry in Peru. We know that the informality is a big problem in developing countries, and I would like to ask how can the PCP deal with this problem, particularly the creation of industrial parks? How can the industrial parks reduce informality directly or indirectly? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, informality, as you put it, or the informal sector, is one of the issues that we really need to work on in our country, as is the case for other developing countries too. We think that the PCP is going to help us in a number of areas, chiefly on the one hand, because we're trying to promote an approach to ensure that the companies that are involved in this process gain market access. In our ministry, we take the view that one way to reduce the informal nature of employment would be to promote or facilitate access to markets for the enterprises by working, therefore, on these industrial parks so that they can be formally established, become true formal structures that will help make to set out some clear rules of the game, so that those companies that are interested in being located in these industrial parks, as would be the case for most of them, who are interested in physical space in these industrial parks, will have to abide by those rules. Now, these, generally speaking, are tools and instruments that the day-to-day work with the PCP is going to allow us to further develop, which will lead to greater formality of the employment sector. This means providing incentives, not necessarily imposing rules or structures, but providing incentives in order to attract more companies.
So I hear now at this point that we do have some questions from Geneva. We're going to see if it might work this time. Can we go to Geneva?
Thank you very much, Sarah. Indeed, the distinguished delegate from Senegal to the WTO has a question. Over to you, sir.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank UNIDO for having organized this session. We'd also like to thank our panelists who've been sharing experience from their countries that were particularly interesting. For Senegal, we were very pleased to hear the presentation from Mr. Ndiaye. This was a very ambitious project, one which sparked a lot of hope, in particular the industrial park you mentioned. I have a question then for the panelists. We're aware of the difficulties encountered by the industrial sector in developing countries, in particular in Africa. So, in as much as possible, I'd like to hear what panelists think about how PCPs can provide tangible solutions to these type of challenges. I do understand that there may be a lot of room for discussion there. So maybe if they could just give me a few salient points as to how these PCPs provide specific solutions to the problems we face. More specifically, I'm wondering how the PCPs can assist the industrial sector to the best of its ability. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And perhaps we can actually give that question to the representative from Ethiopia, especially as one of the more established PCPs. I think that you might have some great insight on that.
Thank you very much. I think this is also a very important question about the difficulties faced industrialization in Africa, especially now how PCP is helping to address this challenge. I think one of the critical elements, usually also in the previous years, the failurity in the industrialization is the lack of linkage between agricultural sector and also industrial development. Silo industrial development alone will never also take Africa forward. We must link agricultural transformation with industrial development. So unless we work with the whole value chains, we will still have a problem. So PCP now, in our case, is helping to create a linkage. So we are not talking about industrial development, we are talking about agricultural transformation, actually equal emphasis. The resource that we are mobilizing is actually not only building the industrial park per se, is about transforming agriculture. Most of Africa's industrial factories are dependent on importing natural or raw materials. And this has created, because of many challenges. So we must develop a full value chain in order to address, also accelerate agro-industrial process, especially manufacturing-led agriculture. So we must exploit our comparative advantage that will create. So the investment should be not only on the hardware, but also on the software in the linkage. This is, in my view, is a very critical element also. Again, one of the issues is now we are embarking, all of us, in agro-industrial development. We are embarking on the same product. Again, it will be also trading among African countries will be a challenge if we are ending up producing the same kind of products. So how can we really trading among ourselves? That should be, so we must focus on the comparative advantage of each country has. Then we will have a diversification and attraction, and also trading will be facilitated. So this is also one of the areas we need to look. So we must focus on key critical advantages that each country has. Then there will be diversity, there will be linkage, there will be trading among African countries also. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that vision. And on that positive note, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our panel session this morning. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us here at the advanced session of the 7th ISID Forum, Insights from PCP Countries. We do indeed hope that we provided a bit of insight today. As I mentioned, we have heard that many member states are actually interested in establishing a PCP. Today we heard lessons learned, keys to success, and we heard them from the 6 PCP countries, from the newest to the most established, including Ethiopia, Cambodia, Senegal, Morocco, Peru, Kyrgyzstan. We were also welcomed here today by the UNIDO Director General, Lee Young, who has also been sitting on our panel today. I'd just like to thank you to all of you for being here, for listening today. I'd also like to thank our participants who have been joining us virtually, that is in Geneva on the UNIDO website and also on YouTube. My name is Sarah Kelly. It's been a great pleasure to be your moderator today. If you liked this session, I can also recommend that you join me a little bit later today. I'm hosting the GMIS informative session, and that is taking place in the room C4 at 2 p.m. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.